What's up, natural bodybuilding world? This is John Bossy here at the conclusion of the 2013 ISSN annual conference in Colorado Springs, and I ran into basically one of the brightest minds in the sports nutrition industry, Dr. Jacob Wilson. He's a good friend of Lane Norton's and also his co-host on Muscle College Radio. If you aren't currently listening to the show, I highly recommend it. So, Dr. Wilson, can you tell us a little bit about how Muscle College Radio came about?
Well, actually, Lane and I had been talking about starting a podcast up for at least since 2008. So it's something that's been in the works, I think, for a long time. We want to be able to essentially, challenge the myths that are surrounding bodybuilding, but also provide the science for bodybuilders, and how to get bigger, how to get leaner, and things of that nature. So that's pretty much how it got started.
Sure, and as far as getting in touch with RX Muscle and them approaching you, how did that all go down?
RX Muscle actually approached Lane, I would say probably a month before the show started, and then we just took off from there.
Any advice maybe on someone that might be, I guess, trying to find that balance of perhaps they're not someone that's interested in maybe going to school, getting a formal education in nutrition, but they also want to be educated in terms of working with their own clients and, being up on the latest science in the field. Obviously, listen to Muscle College Radio, but any other ways you would advise people like that to go about kind of getting the information that's current?
Yeah, be your own researcher, be your own scientist. School is critical, it's essential, but honestly, 90% of what I know comes from reading the literature itself. So go to the studies themselves, read the papers for yourself. When you have a question, look to the literature, not some blog, So just, you want to study the literature, get in depth in the literature. When experts say something, they mention a study, go look up that study. And I think that's sort of the key.
Very good advice. So maybe tell us a little bit about maybe some things, some tricks up your sleeve. You and Lane have some future episodes. Maybe you plan what we can look forward to on Muscle College Radio.
Well, one of the things where we're all interested right now, my team and I and Lane, is a concept known as Meccano Transduction. In simple terms, it means when you lift weights, something on a molecular level happens, and that triggers protein synthesis. What we think that is a substance released in the muscle called phosphatidic acid. So our lab has been supplementing with phosphatidic acid, and we've seen actually gains in muscle hypertrophy. So we're going to do a whole episode on Meccano Transduction and phosphatidic acid and things of that nature. So I'd say look forward to that for sure.
Very cool. And some of us have seen and heard kind of the things that you've been doing with IFBB Pro, Ben Pekulski, following his journey, seeing exactly what happens to a bodybuilder, on a much more basic level, the changes going on in the body to produce the changes that we see on stage. Is that something we might ever see you do with perhaps a natural bodybuilder or other bodybuilders in the future, kind of following their journey?
No question. I think actually Lane's probably next prep, we'll probably do something similar with him where we'll actually track him scientifically, analyze what's going on with his blood hormone levels, analyze, directly what's going on with his muscle hypertrophy, his body composition, any levels of stress that he might have. So we'll take an in-depth look and use a real science-based approach to that. So look forward to that for sure.
Definitely sounds really exciting. Looking forward to that. All right, so I'm here with one of Dr. Wilson's bright young students, Ryan Lowery. Ryan's currently working on a lot of the projects there at the University of Tampa, including the phosphatidic acid, as well as the HMB studies. Ryan, can you maybe tell us a little bit about what you were here presenting, your posters at ISSN, and some of your latest research?
Absolutely. I was here presenting two posters. One was on ATP and blood flow in both rats and humans. And the second poster I presented was on the effects of 12 weeks of ATP, HMB, or the combination of both on muscle hypertrophy, strength, and power in strength-trained individuals. And basically what we found was that both ATP, HMB, and the combination of both were able to increase both strength, power, and hypertrophy. However, there does seem to be some synergistic effects with the combination of both HMB and ATP on things like power, and then there's also additive effects on strength and hypertrophy as well.
Gotcha. Ryan's slightly catching his breath because actually a lot of us are trying to cram in a quick workout here before we jump on the plane as the conference is done. It's Since we're wrapping up here, maybe Ryan, give us a little reflections on this conference, perhaps how it compares to maybe others you've been to, if this is your first time coming to ISSN, and if you'd recommend it to young students, things like that.
This is a phenomenal conference. This is actually my second time here at the ISSN, but the experience that you get here, especially being younger like myself, you get to meet some of the top and brightest minds in our field, and just being able to network and pick these guys' brains is a truly invaluable experience, and it's something that I'm very appreciative of, and I really want to thank Dr. Wilson for giving me that opportunity.
Awesome. So maybe as we wrap up here, quick reflections on things maybe that you've learned in the lab that have changed your philosophy on training. So, perhaps you trained a certain way, and after having worked in the lab, you said, you know what, I want to apply some of the things that I'm learning. Maybe tell us what some of those changes have been to your own training.
Well, working with Dr. Wilson, one of the things that we first learned about is periodization, and that's something that a lot of people don't understand. And just being able to pick his brain about that and knowing how to change up your workouts day to day, week to week, and something that I'm also really interested in that I've learned a lot from Dr. Wilson and one of our colleagues, Jeremy Leneke, is the use of blood flow restriction, and I've never incorporated that until the past 2 years. But recently, I've been starting to use that more and more, and the research behind that, we're doing a lot with that, and there's a lot there, and that's something that we've been using recently, and it seems to be working.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Ryan, for your time. We'll look forward to seeing more research from you in the future. So, Dr. Wilson, I'm probably going to butcher the name of your new program, but it sounds like you have a new program there in sports nutrition at the University of Tampa. Tell our listeners a little about that program, if they're a young student aspiring to learn more about muscle physiology and sports nutrition, how they'd go about getting involved in that program.
Sure. Well, we have a new program in sport nutrition, or it's called Exercise and Nutrition Science, but same thing, right? So basically our focus is how does nutrition interact with very high volume, high intensity training? At least that's what our lab's focusing on. So the program covers things like advanced strength training variables, advanced training variables for skeletal muscle hypertrophy, really complex look at things like ergogenic aids and their effects on skeletal muscle, an entire course on things like sport nutrition, but then again, an opportunity to work in the laboratory. So for you young up-and-coming students, we're real interested in skeletal muscle, in nutrition's effects on it, on hardcore training and the science behind it. I would definitely pursue something like this. The new program will be in the University of Tampa catalog soon, but you can always shoot me an email at jmwilson@ut.edu. That's jmwilson@ut.edu. So just feel free to contact me, and we'll get talking.
Awesome. And is this a master's program, correct? Or
Yeah, this is a master's program, which someone like Ryan Lowery, for example, who was just interviewed, individuals who apply themselves, I'm not going to lie, this is something that's really difficult. Ryan Lowery has dedicated his whole life to this. But he literally every year, a year's time for him is almost like 4 years in a doctoral program because he's accomplishing so much. So it's very dense. There's a lot into it, but you have the opportunity to go, sky's the limit.
Very good. That actually kind of leads me into my next question. So it seems like you have a lot of young students, a lot of undergrad students as well, and just the quality of the research they're putting out, the amount of work they're putting in this day and age, many people would say, like, wow, you don't find that anymore. People that are very young, very motivated, ready to work hard, and I've just been really impressed with seeing how you seem to rally everyone in your lab, really get everyone passionate about what you're researching, and perhaps just kind of tips to anyone that's, maybe I guess in their 20s, 30s, trying to rally and grow the science of what we're trying to do and get other people excited.
I guess the key for me has always been, finding people who are intrinsically motivated, quite honestly. If someone's not externally motivated, which is one of my backgrounds in psychology, is if someone's intrinsically motivated, all you got to do is provide the opportunity, and give them the freedom to go out and explore, as opposed to completely constraining them. you're in this box. This is all you can do. Well, then they're not able to explore, right? So if someone's extrinsically motivated, just provide several opportunities for them, and that's going to get them going. If someone's not externally motivated, it becomes very difficult. And I don't have as much of an answer, quite honestly, because I really don't work with people who aren't externally motivated. That's just kind of the way it is. Just because it takes so much work, right? And what I would recommend is someone who's not extrinsically motivated for this field, they probably have internal motivations for several other fields, and I would pursue that. So that's kind of my overall advice.
Very good advice. Definitely a very challenging journey, but a very rewarding one to basically find things out from scratch. Look things up, come up with hypotheses, and test them in the lab. Dr. Wilson, any final thoughts on this conference and maybe next year's conference?
Yeah, it was a great conference. We had a great time presenting a lot of data. Ryan Lowery just mentioned a lot of the data that we presented. We as scientists, we got a lot of work to do to figure out how to make people bigger, how to make people stronger, how to gain size and simultaneously get shredded. Man, this is difficult. This is a full-time job, literally 24/7 occupation trying to study this. So, your guys' support we really appreciate because we need it in this long journey. Keep doing what you're doing, guys. Keep fighting the fight, and we're going to keep fighting the fight too. We appreciate you.
Awesome. Well, make sure to follow Dr. Wilson and Dr. Lynn Norton on Muscle College Radio. Lots of good information coming up on that in the future. Until next time, this is John Bossy here at the 2013 ISSN International Conference with Dr. Jacob Wilson and Inside Natural Bodybuilding. Thanks for watching.